Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Brought to you once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Hello, fellow patriots, and welcome to Patriot Radio. Today, we're going to be talking about what should be U.S. foreign policy in a very complicated world. And what is the truth behind the scenes? What is the news behind the news in places like Ukraine and Russia and Syria and Georgia, the country? Well, we can also talk about Georgia, the state, as well, and the Taiwan-China issue. Well, what really is the historical narrative and the context that we all need to know about, and what should we be expecting in the new year? Also, we're going to have with us podcaster Vlad Stepanov, who was just recently at Mar-a-Lago for an event there with America's Future, and kind of his thoughts on what he heard behind the scenes, and also where he thinks things are headed as well. Here at Patriot Radio, we want to bring you the most accurate news before anyone else, so that you and your family can be prepared for the times that are ahead. In fact, the times that are already upon us. But no fear, we were made for this. And the encouraging word here today, at least for me, is just simply this. In the end, God wins. In fact, he's already won. When he said on the cross, "It is finished." So let's walk in the confidence of our faith. No matter what's going on around us, God has us on a destiny, not just for ourselves, but for this great country, the United States of America. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing, which is going to be solely focused on foreign policy, the history behind things, and what should happen here in the next year to 4 years under the Trump administration. First, I want to start with what should be really the 3 points of foreign policy for the United States. The first point, I think, of foreign policy for anyone out there in leadership in the United States to be in accordance with the Constitution and opposed to the globalists, the communists, and the jihadis is this. We should be opposed to globalism everywhere. I'm going to get into the details of this in a second. We should support Christians and freedom fighters, defined as people that are pro-Western civilization, everywhere. And I'm going to talk about how that should happen. And we should, wherever we possibly can, drive a wedge between the three counter states: the globalists, the jihadis, and the communists. So let's start with a memorandum written by Rich Higgins, who was in charge of irregular warfare. He wrote this memorandum in 2017 when he was a strategic planner for the National Security Council. He wrote this memorandum to President Donald Trump. Now, you can still read this memorandum online. It's the Memo to POTUS by Rich Higgins, and everybody should read it. It's, I think, 7-8 pages, not very long. In that memorandum, he identified 3 counter states. This is defined as states that in governmental systems that want to supplant, replace our republic here in the United States of America. And to understand globalism, you need to understand the United States has been the greatest obstacle to one world government, one world religion, and one world economy. And that's why they're attacking us so badly right now. We're that obstacle because we're still a city on a hill, maybe shining dimly as of late. But with the Trump administration coming in, an opportunity for it to shine even brighter. So globalists have laid their plan out in many memoranda, many publications, many speeches. But probably the most interesting book is called Tragedy and Hope by Carroll Quigley. And in that book, he details the history of the plan of the globalists. And again, very simple. One world government, one world religion, one world economy. And so when we talk about things like the Bilderberg Society and the Council on Foreign Relations, you talk about the organizations that are seeking one world government. When you talk about the Trilateral Commission, you talk about something that is bent on one world economy. When we talk about the World Council of Churches, you talk about, well, it's not just secular humanism. That's really too simple. It is an amalgamation of all religions into one. And the idea is that there will be a replacement for the Ten Commandments, which they've already talked about at a couple of UN summits, and the complete compromising of principles across the board under a new framework that is decidedly anti-Christian. In that memorandum by Rich Higgins, he talks about these globalists, but he also talks about the jihadis and the communists also being primary counterstates to the United States of America. The jihadis particularly using civilization jihad or hijra, which is immigration jihad against the United States of America, both Shia and Sunni. Now, under the Shia side, Hezbollah and Unit 910 infiltrating the United States of America and setting up terror cells to, at some point, release them in an October 7th style attack inside the United States across multiple fronts. Then you also have the Muslim Brotherhood special section under various forms and names, but the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood, infiltrating the United States of America too, and acting under different guises to do the same thing, set up terror cells inside the United States of America, using as its funding zakat. And if you're not familiar with Sharia law, 1/8 of a person's giving to a mosque needs to go to military operations under Sharia law. Now, this funds what we would know as jihad or terrorism. And these cells set up in the United States, this is not hyperbole. In fact, the funding mechanism was exposed in the largest terror financing trial ever successfully prosecuted in U.S. history. That terror financing trial was called the Holy Land Foundation, with dozens of unindicted co-conspirators that was upheld on appeal that have never been brought to justice. So the jihadis made the Muslim Brotherhood made the decision to infiltrate the United States of America decades ago. And this has been exposed in more than just a trial, but also in some documents that were discovered as well as part of investigations in that trial. So, with all of that, then you come to the communists and subversion of communism. But first, I want to pitch this. And I want to simplify it for you. Globalism is evil. Jesus is a nationalist. He believed in nation states and that each nation should bear fruit. If you're following along in Scripture, you can read about the fruits of an individual are depicted as grapes and the fruits of a nation are depicted as figs. Read about this in Jeremiah 24, but also in the New Testament where Jesus says, "Who gathers grapes and figs from among thorns?" In other words, there is an expectation for nations to produce fruit that is judged as well. We can see this in Matthew 25 with the sheep-goat judgment, as well as individuals and their fruit being judged and their connection to the vine, Jesus Christ. So globalism is evil. One world government is evil. We see it in Revelation. It is not on the right side. One world economy where you have to worship the beast in order to buy and sell things. Not good. It is evil. And then where one world religion that denies the deity of Jesus Christ, denies the deity of the Father, that is also evil. So we know that globalism is evil. Now, jihad has been a 1,400-year war against Western civilization. That is likewise evil. In fact, in Christian iconography, depicted as the dragon slain by St. George. And if you've heard me talk about this on the show before, you can read about the prophecy written in 200 AD called Second Esdras, which was included in the Apocrypha of the 1611 King James Version of the Bible. And in that Apocrypha, it prophesied there would be the rise of the dragon nations of Arabia. Remember, this was written in 200 AD. So in 632 AD, when dragon nations arose in Arabia, that's why throughout all of Christian history, jihadis have been depicted as a dragon. That's why St. George was shown slaying that dragon. So we know inherently that a religion whose penalties under the Hudud for somebody preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ is crucifixion and beheading. And we also know that in the book of Revelation that the martyrs who are beheaded are accorded special honor in heaven. We know that there is evil in Islam. We know that there is evil in jihad, which brings us to communism. Karl Marx literally wrote poetry before he wrote the Communist Manifesto. He wrote poetry that was decidedly satanic. And the famous pastor Richard Wurmbrand, a true hero of the faith, cataloged the evil that is in Marxism. So, Marxism, communism, even admits under Vladimir Lenin that its object is to destroy Christianity and the repository of Christianity, which is, well, human beings. That's why communism has been involved in so much genocide. In addition to that, Antonio Gramsci, kind of a strategist in modern times for communism and known as a Fabian socialist, in other words, the slow march, said that socialism is precisely the religion that would replace Christianity. So you have a very clear principle here that these three counter states that Rich Higgins identified in his memorandum to President Trump in 2017 are evil. Therefore, our foreign policy and our internal America First policy should recognize that. When we come back after the break, I'm going to be discussing each region of the world. And again, these basic three principles of our foreign policy. Number one, oppose globalists everywhere. Number two, make sure that we are supporting Christians and freedom fighters everywhere. And America First when we come back.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the donor deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your donor deck now.
And we're back with the briefing, talking about what should the foreign policy be here in the near future and continuing for the next 4 years. So, what does America First mean? Well, let's start with opposing globalists everywhere. What does that mean? Well, first of all, there needs to be an understanding of history that the Chinese and the Russians have always been in league with one another, going back to the Comintern in 1919. Now, some people will argue there was an ongoing split in 1956 between the Soviets and the Chinese, but the fact of the matter is, according to several corroborating sources, the Chinese and the Russians, after the fall of the former Soviet Union, and I would call it the fake fall. It's interesting that the KGB changed its name to the FSB, but the GRU, the Soviet military intelligence apparatus, arguably more powerful than the KGB, did not change its name and entered into an agreement with Chinese intelligence in how they were going to infiltrate the United States of America. I'm going to get to that here in a second. But they've always been working together, and they still are. So this idea that we were going to drive a wedge there, yes, that may be a good piece of foreign policy, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. But we are seeing them come together in this time in what I would call the Eastern globalist bloc. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and actually some of the stands being part of this bloc. Then you have the Western globalists, and we've talked about this on the show for literally 15 plus years. They are both fighting one another. So an American first foreign policy is not going to support globalism anywhere. It will support Christians and freedom fighters, but it's not going to support globalism anywhere. And to the extent that people are in Trump's ear to pursue a globalist agenda, the America First camp says, no, we're not going to support globalism. Western globalists or Eastern globalists. Russia is not our friend. And I hear so many people saying that. He is not our friend, Putin. Now, we can seek an end to the Ukraine-Russia war, but he's not our friend. So, oppose globalism anywhere. That brings us to the second piece, and that is support Christians and pro-Western leaders and organizations everywhere. How do we actually support them? Thomas Jefferson actually gave the answer to this, as well as many of the founding fathers. We should be leading with our businesses and our missionaries, not with the barrel of a gun. In addition to that, we should not be supporting both sides of a conflict with arms. That is just, it just blows my mind that we see that happen. Lastly, should we have foreign aid going to these countries? And the answer is no. But part of America First is the East sovereign country should be able to decide for itself how to make its own country great. And we're going to get into this country by country here in a second. And then America First here at home. We need to be rooting out the elements here in the United States, the globalist elements, the jihadi elements, and the communist elements here in the United States of America that are really threatening to undermine this country. That should be our foreign policy and our internal policy, that wherever we can, we start here at home. And I'm not just talking about mass deportations. I'm talking about disrupting and breaking up these networks here in the United States, as you heard me talk about many times. So let's go region by region and see how this applies. Let's start first with probably the most complicated region of the world, at least right now, and that's Syria. As you look at the map on Syria, you see a whole bunch of divergent groups, but let's make this very simple. Recep Erdogan in Turkey wants to reestablish the caliphate. He turned the Hagia Sophia Museum back into a mosque because that's the only place that a caliph can be ordained. He has been throughout the Middle East and North Africa putting together coalitions to further the reestablishment of the caliphate. Here in Syria, HTS, now putting on this mask of being moderate, is composed of ISIS and Al-Qaeda elements, and some of their own jihadis were saying, we're not stopping in Syria, we're going to invade Jerusalem, and we're going to invade Saudi Arabia. Why would they invade Saudi Arabia? Because of the Prophet's Mosque in Medina and because of the Kaaba in Mecca. Because at the beginning of the last century, the Saudis took those from the Ottoman Empire, or the last remaining vestiges of it, and in fact, the Hashemite kingdom was in charge of caretaking the mosque and caretaking the Kaaba. We know the Hashemite kingdom today as Jordan took those over. And so to reestablish the caliphate, Recep Erdogan needs to reestablish control over the Prophet's Mosque in Medina and the Kaaba in Mecca. So when these jihadi elements that are now supposedly moderate say that they're not stopping, they mean it. This is part of reestablishing the caliphate. Iran with the 12er movement, and by the way, so this HTS is now taking over they're going to now make the Syrian army, they're going to disband the factions and make the Syrian army all out of all these factions, these jihadi factions. It just gives an imprimatur to it, a cover, a seal of formality. Well, it doesn't mean they're going to stop with their aims. Now, in Iran, you have, again, jihadi elements, but under the guise of the Shia facade, who are still Sharia compliant, but also with their eschatology believe that the 12th Imam can only come essentially if they wipe Israel off the map. And they're going to do that through a nuclear weapon. In the last 30 days, they have ramped up dramatically production for what appears to be a nuclear weapon. So, should Iran have a nuclear weapon? No. Does Israel have a right to defend itself? Yes. Has it taken out Hezbollah elements, the Iranian proxies? Yes. Has it taken out the Muslim Brotherhood elements, Hamas? Yes. Those are all good things. Why does Israel have to come to us for permission? Very strange in that regard. So you have a pro-Western country, and some people say, well, you don't understand the globalist elements and the leaders of it. Yeah, I understand that. But we have to acknowledge the nuances here, that taking out jihadi elements is a good thing. So Iran was moving into Syria with its proxies and running guns and other weapons to Hezbollah in Lebanon. That has now been cut off. That is a good thing. Turkey, though, in northern Syria, as you can see, is actually in that middle section in the north central, that blue-colored region. Turkey right now is preparing to invade with those jihadi elements against the Kurdish U.S.-backed forces. And they're not just U.S.-backed. U.S. soldiers and Kurds are doing joint patrols in those areas after they've taken over some Russian bases. So you have a potential of a NATO ally against a NATO ally? You do. But that's why. Because historically, the Turks have hated the Kurds because they always rebelled against the caliphate. Now, I'm not going to say always in the sense of every single time, but historically, there has been a clash between those two, even though the Kurds are also Sunni. So what should be the foreign policy in Syria? Well, where are the Christians? Well, if you look down there, where Israel's invaded that blue part, where Israel has invaded Syria, taken Mount Hermon, which has a spiritual connotation to it, by the way, the mountain of oath, where theologians believe that, and I believe as well, that Satan fell, and that was the mountain of oath that he took against God. Israel's taken Mount Hermon and most of the Golan Heights now, and Druze elements down there and Christian elements right in that blue area, and then next to it, And probably, I would say, about 50 kilometers is the Valley of the Christians, and they want Israeli protection. So should the United States support the protection of Christians and pro-Western elements? And the answer should be yes. So when people ask me about these complicated areas, I'm always going to ask, what about the Christians? The Christians are protected in the Kurdish areas. The Christians are protected right down there near the Jewish areas as well. That is what we should be promoting in that very complicated area of the world. Now let's go to Georgia, the country Georgia. And if you don't understand this, Russia historically has always feared invasion from the west and invasion from the south through that area of Georgia into what is known as Abkhazia. You can see Abkhazia there up in the upper left-hand corner, and South Ossetia. So right now you have pro-Russian elements in the government versus many people who are supporting the president, versus many people who are supporting the EU. Is Russia our friend? No. So who should we support there? Again, what's happening with the Christians, and in this particular area, what's also happening with the Jewish population, because they have suffered horrific persecution in the past. What's happening with those elements, and who are the pro-Western elements in that area? Again, not supporting with trying to do color revolutions, but where are we supporting businesses and where are we supporting with our missionaries? In Georgia. Now let's go to the other controversial place, and that is Ukraine and Russia. Now here's a couple of things. Ukraine is the largest Christian country in Europe. Huge Protestant Christian population right now, in addition to Orthodox, non-Russian Orthodox, to now kind of split. So who should we support in Ukraine and who should we support in Russia? And the answer is Christians, because they were the ones actually fighting the corruption in government prior to the war. How do I know that? Because I saw them and I talked with some of them. Pastors who were fighting corruption in their own government. So we should be supporting the Christians there. How about in Taiwan? Well, Taiwan is an independent country, pro-West, anti-communist, and there are Christian elements that have been protected in Taiwan that are not protected in China or Hong Kong right now. Who should we support? Oh, hey, look, there's also pro-Christian elements in the Philippines. We should support those, because the communist Chinese will not stop with the Philippines or Taiwan or Japan or South Korea for that matter. Their ultimate eye, according to all of their leaders that have talked about this, including General Chihuahuan's secret speech and the manual published by 2 Chinese colonels on unrestricted warfare, their primary target is not those countries, it's the United States of America. And lastly, how about South America? Well, right now we see a burgeoning coalition, Paraguay, Argentina, and then into Central America with El Salvador and Nayib Bukele. We see a burgeoning coalition of freedom, pro-Western oriented people. We should be supporting those. And meanwhile, here at home, America First, rooting out all the elements that are threats to this country through those 3 counter states of globalism, communism, and the jihadis. And lastly, wherever we can, be driving a wedge between those 2 counter states, whether it's here or abroad, and having a true America First policy that understands history and understands the plan that is coming against this country. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. And if you have the opportunity, please follow us on Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news. America First, way of the future. And now, a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, our guest, Vlad Stepanov.
Hey, Patriot TV fans, feel like there's nothing on the radio for like-minded, intelligent people like yourself? Well, great news. Now you can stream Patriot TV on TuneIn during your drive to or from work. Whether you're stuck in traffic or cruising down the highway, you can catch every conversation from your favorite show hosts right in your car. No more mindless jibber-jabber. Tune in 24/7 on the road, at the gym, or wherever you are. Download the free TuneIn app now on Apple, Android, or your computer and never miss a beat. Patriot TV, now on TuneIn.
Now we have it. Kingdom Crunch.
It's important to start breakfast off with a power-packed punch. You want a complete amino acid score, good protein. If you turn the label over and look at the back of the box, there is no added sugars in either one of these flavors, either peanut butter or acai bowl.
Peanut butter has 11 grams of high-quality protein. Acai bowl has 8. Peanut butter has 11 grams of carbohydrate, acai bowl 12, and both of them have good solid fat content at 6 grams. Very filling, very healthy.
You will be fueling yourself with high quality fuel, starting off the day right. You can even use Kingdom Crunch as a snack in the middle of the day if you just have a craving and you want to eat something that is good for you. It has a crunch and doesn't have a lot of calories.
There you go. Diabetic friendly, keto friendly, paleo friendly, Kingdom Crunch, and
Child friendly.
And my guest today is Vlad Stepanov. He is a podcast host of One Nation Under God. Check him out on YouTube. But we have some really animated conversations about what Trump is doing, where he's going. Vlad, it's always great to have you back on Patriot Radio.
It's always an honor to be on. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, so first of all, I got to talk to you a little bit about, you went down to Mar-a-Lago. Tell everybody how that went, what happened.
Yeah, we went to the Tucker Carlson General Flynn dinner. I went with Verity Metals. I work with them, and they got an invite. We went. Well, I liked the security. Right, it took us 3.5 hours to travel less than a mile to get in. There was even, I think we drove in the bus from the hotel where we met to Mar-a-Lago, less than 4 blocks, but we stopped twice within those 4 blocks for the dogs, and they were walking around checking for bombs, which security was great. Loved it. Number 2, I mean, if $18 million gets you that in Florida, when I got there, I'm like, I even said it in one of my videos and everyone starts laughing. I'm like, oh, this is what 18 million gets you. One thing that stood out to me was the quality of Mar-a-Lago itself. I mean, we know it's a great building. It's a great property, but easiest way to say, let's say there's just one plant, and you don't really pay attention to a single plant. You kind of look at the overall picture of everything. But every single little, even if it's a 1-foot plant, is in the perfect spot that, kind of fills in the whole house, and everything else fills back that one plant. I mean, everything is so detailed. It was,
Spirit of excellence. Yeah, spirit of excellence is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad to hear that his security is picked up dramatically. That really warms my heart massively. So you interacted with some of those folks down there at the America's Future event. What did you take away from the people that were there? I mean, Mel Gibson was there with General Flynn. Kid Rock was there, and many other celebrities. But a lot of it was revolving around ending child trafficking and that scourge here in the United States.
Yeah, so they were raising funds to fight, child trafficking and what happens at the border. I interacted with Tom Homan. I spoke to him for like 2 minutes, and I'm waiting in line. I get to him, and I'm shaking his hand, and my first words were like, "Sir, I'm an immigrant." He looks up like, what is he going to say? I'm like, "You need help rounding up the Russians and Ukrainians, give me a call." He just laughs. We take a picture. But, it was General Flynn's speech and that I liked the most. He talked about, it was short, like maybe 7 to 10 minutes, but he hit it right home. He's like, our country has been degraded. Our country is a laughingstock. Our country went from greatness to poverty, whether it's financial, whether it's morally, right? And he's like, we need these 4 years to do something about it. We are standing, we have a choice now. We won the election. we need to pray to get to Inauguration Day safely. He's like, then we have a choice. What are we going to do? How are we going to spend these next 4 years? And I remembered back in, I think it was to early 2019, there was some Russian prophet out of Seattle who actually stood up and prophesied. And then he was mocked for this. He said, I have given the Church of the United States grace. I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, I've given them grace. I've given you Donald Trump. And instead of building my kingdom and saving souls, you are building big buildings, buying great, how most Slavic churches have a retreat, camp. He's like, you're buying all these great properties, building houses. Personally, you're getting rich and starting businesses. He's like, but I've given him to you to save souls. Yes, get rich, do all this stuff, but you forgot the main thing. And if you don't get in line, Trump will not win 2020. And he was laughed at. Everyone laughed at him, thought it was funny. Nobody changed. And then 2020 comes along. That guy was right. While all these other prophets were like, no, there's going to be a nada and Trump's going to be back in and all this stuff. That one guy stood still. He said, nope, he's done this election. He won't win it. And it's like, now God has given us grace. Trump won again. He gave us wisdom. I believe if a lot of people, even like myself, it needed the 2020 election had to be stolen for me to realize what corruption in the government is, what government truly is, and what the job of we the people is. So God fulfilled his prophecy of Trump didn't win, but with that, he woke a lot of people up.
A lot of people have been awoken, and we've seen also that there has been revival. We're seeing it around, the United States with college campuses, and there is the beginnings of a reformation. It's right now, like you said, and I think this is probably the most important point. We cannot stop here. We need to continue to pray this through.
Yes. Yeah, pray through. We got to already start getting ready for 2026. Democrats, they're already talking about who they're going to run in 2026, how to take Senate, how to take Congress. And these next 2 years are going to be great. There's a lot of stuff that Trump can fix quickly, right, through executive order. But there are other things that Congress needs to be involved. The Senate needs to be involved. He needs a lot of votes. And I think 2026 is going to be extremely important. It's the Trump's final 2 years are going to be more important than the first 2 years. That's my opinion. But I think, and the Democrats know that.
Yeah.
He understands he can't run ever again.
So as you were talking with the folks that were there, what were their main concerns over the next couple of years? What were the ideas that they were talking about, the things that needed to be addressed and that they were hoping Trump would address?
Number one thing was people wanted mass deportation and a great economy. That's the number. I met with, I spoke with Ivan Ranklin for a few minutes. I met General Flynn's brother, right? And all of them have one thing in common. Everyone. We need mass deportation. You obviously saw the illegal immigrant that Trump deported, who came back in under Obama, in the subway, lit a woman on fire.
Yeah.
So we saw that. I can't confirm yet, but there was if this guy was legal or illegal yet, but I know from what I'm hearing, he came here recently, a Russian or Ukrainian guy who in Sacramento beheaded a 1-year-old baby 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
From the rumors I'm hearing, he recently came here. He immigrated here through the border under Biden's watch. And so the main thing everyone wants is to get back to greatness. Everyone, many people were excited about different things, whether economy, but deportation is the biggest thing wherever we go.
Well, I want to talk about that then from the Slavic perspective. There are a lot of people in the Slavic community. Some members of my family took 3 and 4 years to legally immigrate as refugees, Christian refugees who were persecuted under the former Soviet Union, under Lautenberg, for family reunification for the same reason. And then there are some in the Slavic community that actually have reached out. Are we going to be sent back home? And the first question is, well, are you here illegally? Well, no, we're here under you for you. Are they going to actually be sent home? How are you addressing this when you hear it from inside your own family?
Well, one thing I noticed, there are some people who, before Trump got elected, my brother-in-law's wife's mother, so Julie's brother, oldest brother, when they were actually supposed to immigrate here March 6th of 2022. They were done with the 5-year process. My Julie's sister and brother with their families. A week before the war started, they get a phone call and say, hey, you're going to leave a couple months later. There's some issues. The war starts, so they came here through the border, right? But they have stamps before the war ended that they were supposed to be here. Now they're here. They're paying taxes. They started businesses. But the mother-in-law was like, oh, before Trump won, I want to go home. I miss Ukraine. Now she's worried.
Right.
Here's what I tell people. First of all, when Trump won the first time, we heard the same thing. He went after criminals. If you look at how many convicted murderers, rapists, abusers, child traffickers, drug traffickers, they were convicted in their country, who were let in. By the time Trump gets done with them, then by the time Trump goes after the people that have been here for 2 years, 3 years, and have never applied for a job, they're living off welfare, just getting cash, EBT, free phones, free hotel. But first he's going after the criminals, the gotaways. Then he's going after those guys, right? The ones that have just been sucking down in the system, welfare system. 4 years is going to go by. This is one thing I tell everyone. Stay out of trouble. Make sure don't get pulled over, because they are going to give police their power back.
That's right.
Where if they pull you over, they can check you. So go to work, get a job, pay taxes, try not to take anything from the government. Don't get in trouble. Do everything you're supposed to. Then by the time they go with all the people that are here to use and abuse the American system, who came here illegally, by the time they get around to you, we're going to have a booming economy, I believe. And if you've been doing everything right, you'll stay. That's my opinion. And I think by the time all these people are deported, everything's cleaned up. And then when they get to these people and be like, well, why deport him when he's been paying taxes, when they started a business, they employ people, or they go to work, they do something for the nation. I know 2 guys from Spokane, Washington that we used to be friends. This was before I came to the Lord, and they got deported to Ukraine. So when you get deported, when you get arrested, you serve a prison sentence and you're deported, and one of them didn't even go to trial. As soon as he was done with this state prison, they took him to Tacoma deportation center. He signed off, waived all of his rights, said, deport me.
Yeah.
They're back. They're back.
Right.
As soon as the war started, they came through that border. And so I tell people, don't worry, just do what you got to do. Just it's too early to panic. They have so many people ahead of you like that they got to get to. But from the rumors I'm hearing, Trump is shutting that down.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. And also just the fact it's going to take a while to disrupt and dismantle terror networks that have been used to infiltrate foreign agents. And everybody needs to hear what I'm about to say. Foreign special forces and a foreign intelligence service into this country, not in the thousands, not in the tens of thousands, but in the millions. That needs to be addressed, and that is going to take a significant effort on the part of President Trump. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about whether it should be Greenland or Canada as the 51st state.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Oh Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. Takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
And we're back with Vlad Stepanov, host of One Nation Under God. Well, recently, Vlad, so people getting bent out of shape, and I have my sad hamster here because we're gonna go ahead and just play kind of the sad hamster song for Justin Trudeau. Trump really trolling him by saying that Canada would be the 51st state. Now, I think that the provinces each would be a separate state. That's probably a debate right there. And then coming out very clearly and saying, of strategic necessity, the United States needs to control Greenland. And he's dead serious about it. And he did it in the announcement of who would be the ambassador to Denmark. So very clear that the Arctic is now becoming a strategic hot button issue. How do you take these things? And then we'll talk about Panama Canal.
Well, there's truth in every joke, right? So some people think he's joking, because the way Trump speaks, sometimes you're like, is he joking? Is he sarcastic? Even on his tweets, right? It's the mountain isn't even. It's like, I forgot which mountain, but it's a mountain in Europe, and Trump is standing there with an American flag, and it says, "Oh, Canada." I mean, that's a troll. That he's trolling. He knows what he's doing, but. If you look at Canada, if you go on social media, people that live in Canada, a lot of people want to join the United States. Justin Trudeau destroyed that country. It was one of the greatest countries in the world just 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now, it's worse than the United States, way worse, and we've got our own problems. Justin Trudeau is a sold-out globalist, right? He's a communist. Maybe we need to hold a referendum. Go in, hold a referendum, see how the people vote.
Very interesting, because the heartland of Canada, so talking about eastern British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, talking about Yukon and the Northwest Territories in particular, not even mentioning Nova Scotia, which has a very clear conservative bent as well, but a lot of these areas already are conservative areas. They're tired of the communists in power under Justin Trudeau. They're tired of the inflation, losing their livelihoods, losing their property. They're just tired of it. So I think there's actually a lot more to this than is really been put out by the mainstream media, and it's really being talked about by pundits here in the United States. A lot, like you said, have been kind of laughing it off. Where do you think this goes in 2 years? I mean, I think that there could be some leaders in some of these provinces that maybe do a referendum, or they do what's called the legal term is a plebiscite. But yeah.
So you could look at it as the situation in Eastern Ukraine in 2014. Maidan happens. Eastern Ukraine is very against it. I have relatives that were there during the referendum and votes in Crimea and Donetsk and Mariupol, who said people did not agree what Kyiv was doing, and each city held its own little election, and then maybe they could do that. Now, how would the military react and the brass of Canada. It would be, is it impossible? No. Would it be difficult? Yes, but I think it would have to go down to, well, Justin Trudeau's almost out. He's going to resign any day. I mean,
clearly there is complete. Yeah, clearly there's a complete, and maybe that's what happens. There's a complete reset of their government. Yeah.
Yes. So maybe that could save it. But if it keeps going down the path it's going, yeah, I mean, either people are all just going to leave, or it's just going to collapse into a third world country.
I mean, Pierre Poilievre, who would be the leader of a new government, gave one of the best speeches I've heard in years, quite literally talking about the common person and how they're not even able to make it by right now, and just the everyday choices because of the policies coming out of Ottawa. And so
I heard that speech.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a groundswell happening, similar to what happened in the United States, where the working people of the United States, those that are having to pay their mortgage, those that are having to choose between education for their children or just the basic necessities of life, really turned on the Democrat Party here in the United States. I think we're seeing the same thing happen in Canada.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, whatever goes woke turns to, crap, like Trump says. And that's exactly what we see happening. Look at Europe. Europe is the same thing, right? And that's why we see, when it comes to elections, such a hard right shift. It's happening worldwide, right? In Georgia had an election, a very conservative, anti-war, anti-NATO, who's anti-joining European Union if they're going to take everything from us, wins. And out of nowhere, these protests and the same people that were at Maidan, like Victoria Nuland, all these people are cheering on the protests. See, when it was the truckers protesting, the globalists, they took their bank accounts.
Yeah.
When it's Georgia's youth that are brainwashed by the liberal agenda, take back your country. The hypocrisy is ridiculous. People are tired of it. They see it. They see the two-tier justice system. They see, I mean, when you have, what was his name? The former advisor to Zelensky, the tall guy with the dark hair. Never mind. He's on PBD podcast. They just posted it. He's running for president in Ukraine as soon as he can. He's on Zelensky's blacklist now, and they used to be best friends. I listened to like half of the podcast. He says, he's like, if you look at the real numbers, he's like, there are polls that are being done by government officials worldwide, and he said people trust the East now more than the West, and this we haven't had happening in a long, long time. And it's the sad reality is of wokeism and globalism.
It is, and the globalists are still. I mean, I was talking about on the on the show that the globalists are still pursuing a central bank digital currency out of the BIS, Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. They're still pursuing this stuff, and they've just had enough. And as Trump is coming in now and is pursuing peace through strength, things are beginning to shift. And I think other governments, I think Trump's win is an example of shifting the Canadian government. I think Trump's win also is there's going to be some hard realities for some people. And let's shift to Panama. Jimmy Carter gave away Panama against the advice of most of the national security establishment and the intelligence establishment. Not that that's the end-all be-all, but they're saying, hey, look, China's just going to step right into this. And that's exactly what has happened. China has stepped in and is not only trying to choke off U.S. shipping, which goes from coast to coast, but is also trying to choke off copper mines, which is a key component for any defense industry. Analysts will tell you this. For preparing for war, copper is going to be critical. So they're not just choking off shipping, they're choking off the huge Cobra copper mine down there in Panama. And so Trump just came out and said, listen, this is actually the United States canal. We designed it. We built it. We controlled it for years. It was a mistake by the globalists and the Democrats, although they did it intentionally, obviously, to weaken us. It was a mistake by them to give it away. We want to exert control over that strategic choke point because it's in our vested interest to stop China from taking it over. I want to get your reaction to that statement. And then also, as we see other shifts, maybe in South America, what other countries are going to come into a block with the United States, do you think?
So in the Panama, I don't know. I don't like when I first read it, that's when I first started looking into it. Well, why did it give it for free? Did they have dirt on them? There's that should be investigated into itself. Right? Now, can he be held accountable? No, he's not around. But we can reverse according to the information that can be found. Be like, look, you use blackmail. Your people use blackmail on our people back then. That's not the way we do things. That's a way. You're right. If we find out there is blackmail or whatever, or a backdoor deal, illegal backdoor deal, then it's easy to take it. Number two, how would China react? Do I think that if America and China went to war one-on-one, I don't like the odds of the United States today because we've sent so much everywhere. But China's, they're just sitting and building. And it's so there's all these other kind of things. But if they are able to find something and be like, look, it was done illegally or something stupid, go ahead, go in and take what our people built, what our money was invested to, and go take it. And if somebody's going to do it, it's going to be Trump.
That's right.
If someone's got the guts to do it and take the heat and not worry about it, it's going to be Trump. When it comes to the shift of, countries joining the bloc, or there's two things that need to happen. America needs to militarily take a step back in some of these regions, like in Syria. We should have never been there in the first place. Never should have. There's a few places where, and then voting machines worldwide have to go. They have to go. I mean, Brazil stole an election. But I think people, especially with this generation, with youth, people are waking up. If you look at the 17, 18, 19-year-olds right now in America, young men are the most conservative than they have been in, I think, 5 decades.
5 decades, yep.
So they see the warmongering. They see, okay, Russia's a bad guy. They want war. But NATO, what have you done to stop war? The people of those, besides not even communicate with the Russian side for 2 years. It was Blinken who stopped communication over 2 years. So people see, and people are tired. And now people who should have never run for office, never wanted to run for office, are running for office. Yeah. And it's not just in the United States. It's worldwide.
It is worldwide.
This is how we can take back our country. We can take back the continent of North America. And the world. We got to get rid of the machines. Stop war. Stop thinking that everything can be solved with violence. Are we a modern civilization or are we gangsters? We need to make a decision. How are we going to be?
And reevaluate all of our interests worldwide. Absolutely, yes. 100%. Vlad, thank you for joining me today. We've run out of time, but just really appreciate your perspective as always. One nation under God, Vlad Stepanov. Keep up the fight.